Oh, hi. I do gather that quite a lot of MPs, I think looked like about 35, had said an absolute no, we need full scrutiny and a free vote and to consult the public before any sort of digital ID. Um, because it marks a drastic change in the relationship between governed and governing. Is that right? Yeah. So I wasn't sure that went far enough because I think the risks are a lot more kind of detailed, and the risks are a lot more. I think if people realise what the risks were, they'd be able to put a stop to it and a few other things at once. So anyway, I've written my own version to all the other MPs, and specifically to the MP where I'm based, because they, in the same way as say in Ireland, they've taken away our right to object, and now you're only allowed a comment. There's a little comment period. Um, in Britain, you're only allowed to talk to the man or woman who has been elected in your area. You're not allowed to say, "Oh, hi everybody, we feel strongly about this, and as a collective, we'd like you to debate it." You're not allowed to say that. They're like, you could say, "Oh, the sky's falling in tomorrow," and they'll write back and go, "Oh, thanks so much for your message. Would you just confirm your postcode and whether we can actually address your um, uh, whatever it is, message or not?" The absurdity knows no end. So anyway, this is what I've come up with. Let's just have a little look. Demanding due diligence. Um, we demand due diligence before the rollout of the digital ID and the egregious demise of Oxford to a smart city. The platform that has been given the rollout is Ewan Blair's multiverse. He has a hopeless and unrelated track record, his company providing apprentices to financial services, was 14 million in debt in 2022 and made 40 million losses in 2023. This is not the sign of a competent institution to handle the personal data of every man, woman and child in the country. Ewan Blair's personal net worth suddenly shot up to 1.7 billion in early 2024, not through making good decisions or managing his responsibilities or business any better, but through what they said investor confidence. It turns out Bill Gates and Elon Musk were those investors, and they have taken over Multiverse. Therefore, it's not even the threat of arbitrary criminalisation and exploitation by the government which is the greatest danger. It is the complete control of living people by foreign technology managed by corporations sharing these two eugenicist directors with equal investments in the pharmaceutical industries and World Bank. No politician understands blockchain or the technologies that are being used. Governments will simply be sold the data when they want to implement a new control or law. Governments will be told when and where there is a security and public health emergency, what measures to mandate, and how much of what to buy from which part of the approved logistics supply chain. Then the public will be monitored for their compliance and penalties extracted to pay the manufactured and fraudulent debts they've run up. A few people have said that if you've nothing to hide, digital ID will be no problem at all. But this is nonsense. Legislation changes every day, building upon an already 100% fraudulent system with financial, not social objective. Other people say that a mandate needs our consent so we can just opt out. But we actually already have that bodily materials, the optional donation of our bodily materials here. So, but anyway, what I've written is we already have Malaysia and Vietnam to go on. In Vietnam, they brought in the digital ID, and 86 million bank accounts were closed when people either couldn't organise or exercised their right to say no, they would prefer not to use digital ID. Most likely, they couldn't prove who they were in time. English people are relying on you to ask how much money did the central bank steal from those 86 million Vietnamese people in that moment. And who is that decided by? What redress can they have? They have effectively been cancelled, taken off the records and offline, and the same in Malaysia. We know how quickly we can be made to accept that cash need no longer be recognised as legal tender. When our notes were recently fully replaced with notes apparently strengthened with animal blood and other bodily materials, and no doubt some nano to track its movement, we had to exchange notes we had kept or risk them being rendered worthless, and more worthless. We know that MEP Pierre Larantandu, I think his name was on hunger strike for over 25 days as the only man on the Financial Management Commission who said financial services should, in fairness, pay 0.1% tax on each transaction, as the only industry doing well during the pandemic. He was refused even a debate outright. There will be no human oversight of interest rates, insurance, regulations, debt, currency values, the value of anything, except on the stock exchanges, as just one of the biological assets and natural processes, markets. The value of human life will be unashamedly reduced to justifying ever-increasing ways of dipping and double-dipping into our estates. This is done by impersonating us and insisting we identify ourselves in every possible way with the legal fiction, the person which is really just a birth certificate used to open a security and trust on us soon after we're born. We should be the beneficiaries of that, not the debtor. The people are just about to rise and take back the stewardship of our land and property. So please put the elites in jail without access to a computer or phone. Assets stripped, people restored. Please don't let the government smooth the way for these criminals to wheel in their Trojan horse and create an invisible prison. And please raise in Parliament what happened in the post office scandal, where they introduced Horizon, a new technology that was faulty and yet led to the criminalisation, jail and ruination of lots of honest postmasters who could not prove they were innocent. The government will say that the AI and other systems cannot make mistakes, but of course they can. Who does the government say will monitor the digital ID platform and systems? Who will pay those staff? Who will train them? What safety systems are in place that would and could be activated to stop the digital ID or the CBDC, which is central bank digital currency, or people being penalised and physically harmed by these systems, possibly kidnapped? Definitely arrested, much the same thing. You will have seen how in every area where AI has been allowed to make decisions, that pensioners and other ordinary people, artists, they've lost their income, supports and their accommodation. There is no bank manager in banks anymore. Any company can just refuse cash without explanation. There is no accountability and no access to justice for people. This is our only chance to stop the publication and handover of our entire private information. I'm sure you grasp how the internet works. Bill Gates and Elon Musk have admitted that, amongst others, that they offer free communication platforms and free services online specifically because they can make their profit from use of our data. Have you noticed how not one human being has received the royalties or credit for their work since the internet started? And yet every proposal, public tender, application, essay, piece of research, idea must be submitted digitally, which has indelibly given big tech all their dreams of artificial intelligence databases, access to every piece of intellectual property, human intelligence and ability, free of charge. Digital ID would be literally giving a consent and password to these businessmen to exploit. But even that isn't the greatest danger. In 2004, Bill Gates was able to register a patent giving himself exclusive rights to the computerization of the human body and all energy and electricity arising from technological interaction with the human skin. This patent must be renounced, revoked, denounced, whatever it is, and all patents like it. We just cannot have someone who has bought themselves complete indemnity in charge of a platform holding all biometric data and identity and whereabouts and movements of real people, whose business plan involves exploiting us physically, mentally, financially, energetically, by using an undisclosed biological technological interface and internet protocol technology to transmit, generate and receive energy and information, making people part of the Internet of Things, and using us as alternately captured market and disposable products. Indeed, most people don't even know that genetic engineering has advanced to electroporation, genetic modification conducted remotely through electric pulse. Think of the enthusiasm for 5G, in brackets, planning applications and safety reports for masts in Abingdon and all over the place received from companies that have been dissolved for 15 years. And the smart meters for electricity, the irregularity of those pulses and the adrenaline response generated from Wi-Fi are very disruptive to living systems such as our circadian rhythms and ability to sleep, grow or reproduce. What would the digital ID cover up, as no one will be able to question the wisdom of previously unthinkable developments? Consider how in Milton Trading Estate, Jeremy Farrar, lead scientist at the WHO and now Assistant Director General, financed Oxitec to produce GMO mosquitoes with hidden IP technology coupled to Microsoft CNN AI, complete with a kill switch that could be turned off if they spread out of control, and with deformed mouths and infertility. These are the legacies of our Oxford University Tropical Diseases Centre and academic personnel, toxic mosquitoes sent in their trillions to other countries for release, driving diseases like Zika, which was a mild cold, to become a baby head-shrinking pandemic in the areas of Brazil they were released. Now Brazil has agreed to build the biggest ever mosquito factory. The people cannot say no. No politician understands gene transfer or even the basic fact that gene-edited microbes in medicines, conservation, military or agriculture are living, unlike chemicals, and continue to pollute, proliferate, corrupt, mutate and disrupt, and could collapse our entire oxygen supply or plant life with the absurd CCS, carbon capture and storage biotech, being allowed unmonitored and with no recall possible. The audacity is extraordinary, and your constituents are relying on you to find out the capacity of the technology now. The question must be more than what could a hostile agent do with our biometric and biological data. You only need to look at DARPA and HARPA for a glimpse of established projects. And Bill Gates and Elon Musk's conflict of interest and vested interests must be considered suspect. Ewan Blair's dependence on investor interests rather than business practices and safe data storage must be considered as making the people vulnerable to enslavement. What could someone do with our biometric data? Our iris scans. One guy was made to give 2 DNA samples. Probably lots of people have been made to do that for any number of reasons or on any number of pretexts. What is going on? I can answer that, but all we need to grasp is that digital ID is a tyranny and not somehow convenient. I understand that as an MP you have limited opportunities to speak. I remember when Andrew Bridgen had to stand up for his constituents damaged by the COVID injections. But this is the thing about being a public servant. You will find you have a lot of people behind you in support, and this is a fight for our lives. It's easy to articulate. We have created corporations and inadvertently given these commercial entities power over us. All we must do is take back the decision-making and enshrine the principle that no group, however assembled, however scaled up, becomes beyond accountability. You might not know, but when Microsoft released its AI Copilot, Gates guaranteed his customers total protection from liability. All claims of privacy, invasion, monopoly, copyright, and every other crime, online harm, fraud, and intellectual property theft that use of AI would lead to, Gates would provide and pay for the legal team to squash it. Saying it will be optional is actually forewarning of the coercion involved and planned. Every transaction will be monitored and stored and processed to deduce whatever outcome suits the mercenary narrative of the month. We do not consent to handing over any of our data, let alone biological or biometric data. We need to be able to sue people and companies that commit crimes against us. We need to be able to deduce beyond reasonable doubt who committed the crime. We do not want an avoidance or confusion about the interaction of several technologies in the body as cause of death, some of which we consented to, and most of which were approved without regulation or monitoring, and courts will continue to deny are harmful. Please assist, or harmful or even happening. Please assist the Irish Government and Commissioner for the Environment as to finding out the exact ingredients in the geoengineering experiment approved in Britain for Bill Gates to dim the sun on climate action grounds. The experiments must be halted while previous criminal charges and evidence of spreading pathogens, biotechnology and respiratory irritants are answered and rigorous regulation of the substances being used are established. This means that the 2-month simulation of a pandemic emergency caused by an airborne respiratory disease must also be halted. We cannot risk actual pandemic pathogens being deposited on purpose and creating a real emergency on purpose, which will necessitate a real lockdown and a real national purchase and administration of another experimental biotechnology. I registered an injunction with the ICC on conducting such simulations. It's intended to prevent the continued abuse of FEHICs, public health emergencies of international concern, where the IHR amendments were agreed, that's International Health Regulation Amendments, were agreed without our consent. They and the UN Pact for the Future allow power to pass to the UN in the event of an emergency, contrived or real, in space or in a sovereign nation. I need you to tell the government that they do not have our consent to continue with the simulation of a national emergency or send another alarm to our phones. It was such an intrusion. More importantly, maybe, with the advances in technology, we want full disclosure as to who created that alarm and what frequencies or sequences of sound it contained for what purposes. I've written to you before about the geoengineering, and you will have witnessed the lattice of streaks across the sky from military bases. I've also written to you about our rejection of American nuclear weapons being allowed back into Britain and the earlier permission for their armed drones to fly about in British airspace and foreign offences to be conducted from our very own neighbourhoods. Please realise that our freedom and peace and indeed lives are under threat. The British government is proposing a grand theft, loss of bodily integrity and intellectual property, loss of access to our own property. It can only be stopped before it happens. I was disappointed not to see you on the list of MPs that is attached, who have spoken out against digital ID, smart cities and supposed infrastructure, although you may privately be working on this with the Liberal Democrats. I really hope so. You will not be surprised, as my family was involved in founding the party, to hear that I've been made the head of external affairs and social justice and now plenipotentiary ambassador for the New World Alliances. Please let us help if you need a presentation for a debate or a full conflicts of interest account or the outline of a rigorous due diligence process that must be a requirement before anything else happens. Many thanks, Francis. Let's just see.